Welcome, everybody. I have with me, to my left or right, I'm never too sure, the Apostate Prophet. That's not what his mum calls him, but that's what we're going to call him for while we're speaking to him. Unless he decides unexpectedly to convert to Christianity, then we'll just call him Prophet, I guess, for the meantime. So I'm going to not waffle, allegedly, and I'm going to just say welcome. Thanks for coming to speak to us. And we're just going to have a little free flow, I think, which is, yeah.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it very much. I'm happy, glad to be here. I would still like to keep my Apostate Prophet name, though, no matter what happens.
Sure.
That's okay.
It can be forgiven. Let's put it like that. So
Okay,
it's all good in the hood, as it were. Right. So firstly, I guess I have got some questions noted down, but that'll go out of the window pretty soon. I guess, yeah, the first thing I ever wondered when I saw your videos quite a while ago was I wondered whether Christian polemics had helped you to see the truth about Islam in any shape or form.
well, interesting question. I didn't expect that for the beginning at all.
I do see this sometimes.
Well, let's say it didn't play a major role at first when I was questioning Islam, and when I'm sorry, I'm trying to correct my thinking. When I was leaving Islam, but there was a time when I was on the verge of leaving Islam, and also after I had already left Islam, that I was reading biblical records, or biblical perspectives of certain things that are mentioned in the Quran, like, for example, the story of Abraham and Ishmael versus Abraham and Isaac, and the contrast, these inconsistencies, these completely unnecessary inconsistencies between the Quran and the Bible, and how the Quran takes certain stories from the Bible, and how Christian scholars or apologists in criticism of Islam point out that the Quran makes some inaccurate claims, or that it redefines what prophets are and turns certain figures in the Bible into prophets, like Lot, for example. Things like that had a certain influence on me. After I left Islam, I discovered some Christian apologists, some Christian people who I thought were doing a very great job, because what I saw is that there was a great lack of proper criticism of Islam out there among atheist circles. It was like, you should talk about Christianity, you shouldn't talk about Islam. Islam is a sensitive topic, and most people don't really know much about Islam anyway. And it was up to the Christians, like David Wood, for example, to do proper, comprehensive, accurate criticism of Islam. And I always valued that, which is, I guess, why I kind of also found myself closer to these circles after I started publicly speaking against Islam.
I think so many things just popped up in my mind. I think it's a soft form of prejudice for sure, some sort of liberal perversion of tolerance that people are loath. I don't actually think it's the genocide that's going on, or the persecution, or the blasphemy laws in Pakistan. I don't think it's that. I think it's a false sense of prejudice, of saying these people are far too fragile to be able to take criticism. You can see how it upsets them, and let's just tiptoe around that. And obviously Islam doesn't have the kind of colonial guilt, I don't know, the sort of missionary history that Christianity does. And I noticed that Christian apologists, quite rightly, there's little to no point in pointing out contradictions within the Quran. Sometimes they're in the same sentence. Like it feels somewhat like marking a 6-year-old's homework, and then you're like, oh, shall I just leave it there? Like, it's a good effort. But when it directly contradicts the Bible that Allah's supposed to have revealed, it implies a poor memory at the most charitable. Like, he's forgotten that he said, don't lie. and like he's now changed his
And
mind.
there's this assertion, like from Muslims, that the Christians and the Jews corrupted their scripture and changed their scripture, and then you would assume, well, okay, if there are some contradictions, if there are some differences between the Bible and the Quran, then they are probably differences caused by corruptions based on a certain agenda that Christians or Jews had. But then you look at the contradictions, and there are so many things that are completely different, completely contradictory for no reason at all.
I
It
think
just,
the reason sometimes Mohammed got caught out,
yeah,
sometimes he had a poor memory, sometimes I think he'd heard the stories and just wanted more of a starring role kind of thing. And I
mhm,
think he possibly, I don't really know his psychology. I mean, I can kind of make an educated guess, but I think he wanted to be impressive in as much as these guys have been going around for the last 1,000 years believing this old nonsense. And yet, like with a, yep, Jibril's just told me it's like I've got the real story. But it's a fine line because
yeah.
Allah is obviously claiming to be that guy. The God who revealed the Bible through all these different people, and yet he's finally found his like star man who's got a poor memory and is a liar.
Yeah, yeah.
Let
What
me
I
know.
think is that Muhammad just had a huge problem. I'm just really trying to approach it from a more psychological, a more human level. And from my readings of Muhammad's life, from the reports that we have, it just seems to me like Muhammad had some big frustration and resentment against the society that he lived in, against the local Meccan polytheists or the polytheists wherever they were, because he grew up without father, without mother. He didn't like the way people are. He was a loner. He wasn't really part of anything. He resented everything. He was a merchant. He was introduced to the ideas and the traditions of Jews and Christians that he was quite impressed with, and then he slowly started rebelling against his own society, tried to get the sympathy of Christians and Jews by completely making up a stupid, corrupt, childish version of their religion. Of course, they didn't buy it. Eventually, he ended up being hostile against them too. Unfortunately, through a series of lucky events, he became successful in his mission, which then turned more and more brutal. And then
You
he
could say
revealed
it's
his
the
true.
luck of the devil if you believed in that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that potentially, psychologically speaking, from what I've read and kind of looked into, the abandonment issues and the sense of insecurity and low self-esteem that would quite rightly, follow on from his childhood and some
Mhm.
comments that his cousin made, and even just his name and stuff like that, his surname and what it means. I think that potentially
Yeah.
he wanted to assert dominance. And just as the Roman Empire found out, monotheists are much easier to corral into having one goal that can be extra scriptural, like political goals. If everybody's off worshipping a different idol, it's very difficult to get them even to all have a Friday afternoon off at the same time,
Yeah.
because it could well be their piece of clay, doesn't like Fridays or whatever it is.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But
I
other
just
than that, he's a charmer. Other than that, I mean, what is there not to like? What were you thinking leaving? What came over you?
But it is funny. I mean, there is this thing that you are brought up with when you grow up as a Muslim. There's this sentiment, this whole idea, and you are indoctrinated with that from a very early age. I remember, but like my first memories of Muhammad were some books next to my bed that we were supposed to, that my parents would read to me when I was very little, and those books were basically titled "My Beloved Prophet," and so that's my first memory. And in my memory, in our heads, it is just this very nice, this very righteous, wonderful prophet who did all these beautiful things, who was for justice, who loved us all, and all that stuff, who loved his own people. But then it just turns out that this is simply something that is not really at the core, at the foundation of Islam, because when you look into the Quran, you see that the Quran doesn't really have such a whole love relationship with you. It has a do this or else relationship with the people who believe in it. Muhammad wasn't really that caring. He easily did extremely atrocious things. He was horrible with women, while also apparently, on the surface doing some good things for them, but then really abusing them. On the surface, he was for the rights of slaves, but then he created a much bigger slavery, a much more atrocious slavery built on religious segregation and religious persecution. And his whole life, his whole time of prophethood was full of war, pillaging, massacre. And you just see, when you really look into the sources, when you are confronted with the real Muhammad that you read from the sources itself, he is so much different from the Muhammad that you are introduced to as a child. And when you find this out over time, it's just, I don't know, it's just hard to.
Devastating.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to put myself in that position. I didn't have my beloved prophet. I had Mrs. Nibble. That was a bunny family. I think that was probably Wind in the Willows, C.S. Lewis. If I'd have found out that Mrs. Nibble on the side was a mass murdering, like, narcissistic, somewhat pervert, like, I think I would quite rightly still be in counselling even now, because she just doesn't look the type, the little bunny ears and the. Yeah, but the thing is also that the writers of those like child-focused books on Muhammad are absolutely deceiving, because they themselves, if they're any kind of adult Muslim who's ever been into a mosque or read a newspaper, know that even though there'll be a justification along if you wait long enough, because he was always being attacked. For such a nice guy, I don't know why he was always on the defensive, even before anyone had even spoke to him. It's like he had a problem, really. But yeah, okay, so moving hopefully away a little bit from Muhammad, because actually now when I speak to Jay Smith and Robert Spencer, apparently, like, I'm in a minority of us three because I'm still unsure. That's what I wanted to ask you, actually. My reservation for his actual existence, or my reservation against him not having existed, is just what an absolute cad. I'm going to go with cad he was. Like, he wasn't a better example even than the Islamic Isa. I can't work out the PR stunt behind it. If there is no dude, why make up such a terrible dude?
Well, there are some things. I mean, there are some certain arguments for the idea that Muhammad never really existed and that he was made up. For example, there are some great discrepancies between when the earliest manuscripts of the Quran are, and it is alleged that they date to a time that is older than the time of Muhammad himself. And we don't actually have any historical records of Muhammad. We only have records of him being mentioned after his time outside of Islamic circles. And it could be that it is just a giant myth that was created, that was established by these first rulers of the Islamic Empire, by the caliphs. But then again, it just doesn't make sense to me. It is hardly believable to me, because they were, I mean, these people were tribes. They were severely spread out, distributed tribes that were unable to come together. They had nothing in common. But suddenly, over a short period of time, a religion was gathered under whose banner these tribes were all unified. And they then started fighting outward. They started invading the world. This is something that is very hard to do. I mean, it's hard for these caliphs, for Umar or whoever it is, to invent a figure named Muhammad and then to unite these people. It seems much more plausible that this guy existed and started this unification during his time, and then went out for conquest. It's and we also have this event of the apostasy wars, the Ridda wars, which supposedly happened after Muhammad died. The idea it is told that after Muhammad died, many people in Arabia started rebelling against Islam or declaring themselves independent of Islam. Some declared themselves new prophets after Muhammad, and you could say that was actually just a campaign from the caliphs to try and unify everybody by force. But what it looks like clearly is that they already had something in common before they rebelled against that, or uh, they became offshoots of that after Muhammad's death, and then they were forcibly unified afterwards. And
Yeah.
as you say, it's like when you read the hadith about Muhammad, there's just so much in there, which is very terrible PR for him.
Some
And
of it, I mean, just to his existence, I think there's an accepted hadith that said his dad died like way before his mother had any business getting pregnant with a dead guy. Like he was supposedly passed away like more than 9 months before his birth, quite a bit more. But it's kept in. This is the, just from a propaganda point of view, you would take out, and I mean, I know scientific, like medicine wasn't advanced, certainly like backbones have got nothing to do with sperm production. So if you're going to keep that in, you may as well keep in it, because maybe it's miraculous, maybe it's like a virgin birth, but it's kind of like a don't know. But maybe there was one poor guy, and then they just put all, because even to say, all right, murder's okay now, it's okay to smile in someone's face and hate them, it's okay to, do conquest and stuff. That would be an argument for saying, yeah, the caliphs wanted this authority, but Muhammad reserved all of the sexual extra benefits for himself. So to make up a guy and say, oh, what a guy, but we can't do that, never mind.
There's so many things that come to mind, like the whole idea around him marrying the wife of his adopted son, which caused outrage. The first agreement that he made with the Quraysh, which was shameful for Muhammad because it outraged the people around him as well. Him making a mistake when he gives people a clear instruction on how to treat a field, and afterwards admitting that he is just not right about everything. There are just certain things, being caught with his concubine. There are just so many things where you think, why
Happens
is
to
that
many,
even?
many great
Yeah,
men, apparently.
yeah.
From what I read.
Why is that even in there? Or him making some very interesting, strange remarks about, I don't know, toilet behavior, all that stuff. It's just there's so much there where you think, where did this all come from? And if this
It's
character was
certainly,
made up,
yeah,
why is he
it
not
points to
perfect?
neuroses. It points to an individual neuroses that's pretty strong. I mean, I
Uh-huh.
guess you could collectively put together a nutter, but some of the stuff is very like all of the, don't say three, but do this 3 times and 7 times, and
Yeah.
all of the kind of pseudo numerology. I'm still on the fence. I just don't know, but I don't think it actually matters too much, because as we see with the Quran and the non-preservation of the Quran, it was an Islamic claim. It's like being hoist on your own petard. If they hadn't gone on and on and on and on about how perfectly preserved it was, no one would care that it wasn't.
Yeah.
Like the Bible, all of the textual criticism, as none of it's ever been done in secret. It's all open. There's a footnote guaranteed at the bottom of the page that says, but some copies don't have this couple of words, and sometimes it says this. And I just, yeah.
I have this thing. I don't really concern myself with the historicity of Muhammad very much. When this question is brought up, I feel like it's not really personally that important to me. It's not relevant to me. I mean, it's of course important. It is interesting to dive into that and to find out whether Muhammad did or did not exist. But on the other hand, it doesn't really do that much to the question at hand, because first off, you will never be able to either prove or disprove that he existed, and then again, it doesn't really matter, because you have this character which is who is at the core, at the center of this religion. Now, whether he did exist or did not exist doesn't change anything about the fact that he is at the core, at the center of this religion, and that he has all his qualities that are very, very questionable and all that. And this religion, Islam, exists. What we have to do is to approach this religion and
Do you find
it and
do you find now? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just thinking. So you were involved, unless I'm very wrong. You were a Dawaist. I don't even know what the word is. You were an evangelistic type person before, or like very.
I was very religious. At some point, I joined a very religious group of people, but I was a Sufi Sunni Muslim, so mysticism, and I did engage in street preaching to people and with books and all that stuff for a while. Yeah, I did that.
So did that just follow you into your apostasy kind of thing, the desire to like give out the truth no matter what it was? Because then the non-existence of Muhammad would like, it matters to the polemicizing of Islam in that imams, you know, apostatized just over the preservation of the Quran. So imagine if even a seed of doubt is sometimes enough for, I was going to say for the Holy Spirit, but it's not that kind of video, for some other sense of reasoning to assert itself, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, before you even get to whether Muhammad existed or didn't exist, that actually opens up a completely different question, a completely different point to scrutinize, which is that in order to find out whether Muhammad existed or not and what he did and did not do, you have to look into early Islamic sources, and these early Islamic sources are vague and not really reliable. And I feel like something that I focus much more on when I get into those questions is how much you can trust the Quran. And when I speak about how much you can trust the Quran, I'm not speaking about the preservation of the Quran after it was written down, or the word-for-word preservation, but whether you can even trust the basic narrative. When you go through the chain of narrations on how the Quran was gathered, this chain of narrations depends on multiple people, depends on certain people, and we have no reason to trust those people.
We have reasons not to trust Hafs. I mean, they literally wrote it down. He didn't turn this library book. He said this. He didn't do that. Like, it's bizarre.
We don't have any I mean, we are given a list of people who were supposedly there when Muhammad made his revelations, but these are also just lists that are given to us by some people that we have no reason to trust. We don't know what these people wrote down. We don't know whether these people actually gathered the right notes, and whether they missed anything, or it's just a whole. You just have to trust a lot of people there, and why? If you want to go into questioning the historicity of things, I don't know.
Yeah. Certainly, I think that when you look at the narratives, the fast and loose treatment of morality, like objective, godly, whatever, you know, morality and consistency, because even if there is some religious text somewhere where the God is prone to change their mind and just have a bad day and, oh, let's do it, like, just me personally, I like to know where I am with like eternal truths, because the word eternal, like the clue is in the title. And things that are given out as a decree, the same God shouldn't really go back and sort of abrogate bits and leave things open. And so just from that, why rely on people who are going by a book that said, no, it's all right, you can lie, don't panic, like, I've got this.
It's a very strange notion, the entire message of the Quran, of Islam. It is that the same God, the same one God, revealed the Torah to Moses, and then the same God, after a while, because people went astray, revealed the gospel to Jesus. No one has any idea what this gospel is. Apparently it is some book that was lost and that doesn't exist anymore. And then people apparently messed up again, and then the same God came and finally sent the Quran, and this book can never be corrupted. But we also,
of course not. Of course not. Don't be ridiculous.
Get this message.
God had perfected his revelation by then.
Like, but it's like people corrupt his message. He sends a new one. People corrupt his message again. He sends a new one. But then we see that this new book, supposedly new book, is completely fundamentally different from the message of these older books, and it's just a giant mess. I mean, when you are a Muslim, you don't really learn about the difference between these books, because you are taught that the Quran is your book, that the Bible is corrupt. You're not to approach the Bible. You know, the average Muslim never even gets close to knowing anything about the
Which
Bible.
is so bizarre, because Allah literally says, dude, go and ask them people about that book. Like, if you're wondering where the miracles are, over there, like he literally says, go and ask them. So then you're implying that Allah doesn't know all time. He isn't even a decent like advice giver. And I just, one day I'll get to grips with all of it potentially. But I'm going to move on slightly so with the being taught, you know, obviously you want these people to stay away from the Bible if you're an imam, because they might just realize that all the stories are like slightly skewish, like a sort of Chinese whispers version of, I don't know. But in terms of the genocide of Christians at the moment, I mean, it never ever decreases. Literally year on year, it never goes down. Just for example, Nigeria, it's more than 32,000 Christians killed in the last decade. The mainstream just literally doesn't care. Black Lives Matter are on a tea break, clearly. It's not quite their bag. How is it that, and I accept it, every single Muslim hasn't got this murderous intent, maybe an acquiescence, maybe a sort of turn away from it and it's not happening. But apart from the Quran verses that are quite explicit as to what to do, how does it, have you any idea from your time in the camp, as it were, how it gets by the censors, how people's elderly grandmothers are like, yeah, you just go off and do that? So I'm like, what is said about Christians that's so, like, I don't get the hatred for someone who's following your God's alleged first edition kind of thing.
It is a very I don't know, it's a very deep, dark, complicated thing. But now here is the issue. I want to address first the Western perspective and the Western indifference and complete lack of reaction to what's going on in the Muslim world. It is like, I'm sorry if I'm going to offend people with this one, but
go for it.
like in the West, there is this idea that left-leaning people, seemingly more compassionate people who are compassionate toward others and minorities, have this idea that Western people, white people, are privileged, have this sense of supremacy and racism and indifference toward others and all that stuff. And while they have this notion going on, those same people seem to have this Western focused sense of bringing justice. They want to bring justice in their own society. They want to change their own society. They want to make their own culture better at the expense of everyone else. They treat a Muslim who comes to America, for example, as a minority that we need to be kind and nice to, and we need to overlook all his mistakes and all the bad stuff that he has. But because Western people too often are extremely short-sighted and blind of what is actually going on in other parts of the world. Like this person who just arrived might have come from a country like Afghanistan and might have participated in extremely hateful and violent behaviors that are quite common daily in Afghanistan. But then this Western person who receives that person who came from Afghanistan will just completely deny the existence of all those problems over there, because what matters is what we have here. And here we should just be kind to those people in the minority. And we should just fix all the racism and all the hate and all the bigotry in America and in England, what it is. And
I'll get right on it. I mean, I should be done by this afternoon. I mean, it's pretty, yeah. Sorry.
And people completely fail to see what's actually going on in the Muslim world. Of course, add to that the fact that Muslim society has this very strange blind sense of us and them going on. Like when I was a Muslim, all my life, when I grew up as a Muslim, I learned the entire time that Jews, most importantly, more than anybody else, Jews are people that we can never trust. They are out there to deceive us. They eventually want to enslave us and want to do this to us and that to us. We can never trust the Jews. We hate them, and one day we will fight them. And what we learned about Christians was that Christians were once on the good path, but now they are idolaters. You can't trust them. They are basically in the same camp. They will protect each other and help each other against us. And so let's not even come to all the others.
Shocking.
Non-Christians,
These people who
Yeah.
love each other and don't like being
yeah,
attacked.
yeah.
I mean, it's disgusting.
What's funny is that I learned all that stuff while I was living in Germany with my family in a predominantly Christian culture, and it is strange. And when you have this way of thinking, when you ask the average Muslim will tell you that it is wrong to kill, that it is wrong to discriminate, it is wrong to treat minorities and to treat others, in a bad way. But on the other hand, you are constantly indoctrinated with these ideas and with this hate that comes directly from the religion, because the Quran itself says, and there is a well-known phrase in Muslim society, which is that Muslims are one nation and disbelievers are one nation, which is basically they are all together against us.
It's like the house of war and the house of, I
Yeah.
can't remember, gingerbread or whatever it is. Yeah. Something
Yeah.
else that's not us. Got you.
Yeah, the house of peace and the house of war. And yeah, so that whole thing is going on. And when then in these Muslim societies and Muslim countries, certain organizations and certain groups form militarist organizations that actually take aggressive action against the minorities within the country, and then justify those actions as saying things like they are idolaters, they are immoral, they want to divide us from our values. This is easily justifiable and easily overlooked even by the average person who completely disagrees with mistreating minorities. They simply do not care enough. What they do care about is what happens to some to some normal Muslim guy who applies for a job in Germany and is rejected because he doesn't qualify. That is problematic, not the massacre of Christians in Pakistan, for example.
Do you find then that the us and them, because that's like a recognized psychologically healthy, like that's a prerequisite for being a balanced person, that you have in-group preferences, that you're more likely to be supportive of your family as opposed to a complete stranger, potentially with a knife. I'm only joking. Like, that's a thing that everybody, like mothers are more prone to side with mothers. Like, I have personal experience when I was a kid. It's just a thing. But when it gets, so my question is, for example, Sufis who are clearly Kafirs, like in the Sunni perspective, and is it still an us and them thing, in as much as if the persecution and the murders are being done solely in this instance by, for example, Shia Muslims, would Sunnis and Ahmadiyya and Sufis still have that loyalty to not criticize them in the face of a bigger them, if that makes sense?
Well, there's one thing. Sufis are generally considered part of the Sunni community, but among traditionalists, among the Salafis and Wahhabis, they are generally considered heretics. But nevertheless, you will see that even these popular traditionalist Muslim apologists will still refer to Sufis as brothers, for example, as fellow Muslims. They will have a problem with Shia Muslims. Shia are often considered non-Muslim heretics. And people generally, in popular culture, people don't really want to talk about Shia Muslims, for example. And the issue is they have internal problems, and they will declare each other heretics and disbelievers, but when it comes to public conversations, they are much less likely to call out the Shia Muslims, and are much more likely to either be quiet or stick together,
or murder them, or bomb the mosque. Sort of like either or. Got you.
There's even a
because
thing, I don't remember which scholar that was in some in a significant scholar. I really can't remember who that was, around the times of the Mongol invasions of the Middle East. Uh, he said that even if certain Muslims are astray from the true path, and even if they are the extremists, the Hawari, then we are still supposed to be closer to them than to the disbelievers, because disbelievers are disbelievers. And
are Christians disbelievers? I just got to double check, because if they were on the straight path and have gone astray, why wouldn't you give them the courtesy that this Middle East like dude said to do to the straying Muslims? I don't want to get into that bit, but are
well,
they supposed by Muslims to be not Muslims? I know you don't speak for everybody who's in your former gang, as it were, but the general perception, like, do they think that it really is Allah is Yahweh, if that makes sense, that we'd just like give him a different name? Or I don't,
well, people
because
usually
now
don't.
in Speaker's Corner, then people are like popular Muslim apologists, as you call them. They're much more likely to say, well, your God said this and my God, like, whereas before they would never ever say that, because it was always there is only one, as it were.
Yeah. Well, it really depends on the environment, the conversation you're having, with whom you are talking. I mean, there is this general idea that Christians and Muslims and Jews believe in essentially the same God, but also, and here is the thing. Muslims also often say that Christians and Jews are not necessarily by definition kafir. They are not disbelievers. Kafir refers to those who do not believe in the one God, or who are not Muslims or people of the book. But then Christians and Jews are still technically referred to as disbelievers, as
Astray.
kafirs. And yeah, and Christians are also referred to as idolaters, because the
Right.
Quran, because the Quran, while it calls them people of the book, and while it says let's come together, also says that those who
929.
yeah,
It also says.
yeah, it also says that those who call Jesus God have disbelieved and are therefore disbelievers. It
I
says
think it
that.
also, it may be a hadith, but there's also a rumor going around, as it were, it's quite an old one, that Allah will make the Christians superior until the day of judgment, and then basically just sort out a couple of squabbles and just like be on your way. Oh, apart from the mountain of sin that is just going to dump on us from passing Muslims. It'll all sort itself out, I'm sure.
Yeah, what's very interesting is that the Quran also at some point says that those who are Christians and who are Jews, they have nothing to fear on the day of judgment. But then later on, it declares them disbelievers. It says they are deluded. It says, may Allah destroy them. And in a clear, authentic hadith, it even says that on the day of judgment, Allah will first send sinning Muslims to hell, and then he will take out Muslims from hell, and will
By
take
the beard,
Christians and
is
Jews.
it? Or something?
Yeah, I think we'll take Christians and
I don't know what
Jews
the
and
women are
them
going
to
to do
hell.
at that point.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. So Allah will take out Muslims and exchange them for Christians and Jews, whom he will just dump into hell.
And yet, as we all know, any right-thinking person knows no one can carry the burden of another. So, I mean, it all seems pretty contradictory. But that's just me, I suppose. So, right, a couple of other questions. Why not theism for you? Like, no, seriously, you spent so long being passionate. You weren't just like culture. Sorry if I just killed you. So you were not culturally Muslim. You were in it to win it, as it were. Like, you were committed to the cause. Isn't it a bigger? Isn't it more frightening to say there is no God, knowing even atheists, I assume, know that humans aren't like all knowing? So, like, even just in a Pascal's wager kind of, like, didn't you think, oh, I'll just go for a nicer version rather than just throw out the baby with the bathwater? Did it cross your mind? Like,
well, I didn't directly go into atheism when I left Islam. So I left Islam around I don't know, 2014, I believe. And for a while, for a year or so, I still did not deny the existence of a God. I wasn't sure about it.
Very
I wanted
sensible.
to think more about it, and I was looking into a lot of things. I was looking into things like near-death experiences, and it even made me question my entire existence. And but after a year or so, I then concluded that I simply cannot believe that there is a God. And over the years, I thought about that again and again and further and developed that more and more. And I'm now convinced that I do not have any reason to believe in God.
But you still word it so interestingly. You're still, the onus is still on your belief. It's quite possible to look at something that exists, literally to look at something that is and say, I don't believe that. I don't believe that woman's wearing that dress. I can't believe it. I do not believe she's come out of her house looking like whatever it is. Rather than confidently asserting the non-existence of like the king of, like the creator of the, so I would say agnostic prophet, potentially, like it, I don't know, like your belief is one thing, but do you accept then that there could be,
No.
and you just don't see it?
No, I disagree with agnosticism. I think that agnosticism is I think agnosticism has kind of a lack of decisiveness, a lack of courage, and the lack to admitting that something that you don't believe is certainly not true. I'm very convinced with my atheism, and it has many reasons. For example, the problem of hell, the problem of justice, the fact that there is no reason to believe that there is an afterlife, that none of the arguments
Sorry,
for
why are
God
you
make
stating these
sense.
things as if they're obvious issues with no possible like
Well,
rectification?
I'm stating what I think. Of
You're
course,
very
if we really went into it, we could lengthily discuss that. I'm just saying, I'm just summarizing that these
I'll
are
stick
reasons
it in my
why.
calendar. I'll just check them off as I go along because none
Okay.
of those are insurmountable. We've had, you know, tens of thousands, like a long time of the greatest thinkers in human history and of today. Certainly, some of them are ardent atheists, definitely. And yet some of them, like agnosticism, I don't think is a get out of jail free or is like an easy out, because it has at least a tiny bit of humility to it to say, well, I couldn't conclusively come to that belief. And I don't know enough as a human being with finite senses I haven't gone and checked every corner of the universe. I can't see into the unseen. I can go with that. I can sort of respect someone's opinion. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like when you're debating and they say, oh, do you know what? I never thought of that. I'll go away and come back. And you think, oh, that's good. Instead of just like,
well, how I think about it is, it's like reincarnation, for example. There are many people in the world, a lot of people in the world. In the West, we don't even realize how many people believe in reincarnation, but a lot of people in the world believe in. A lot of people believe in reincarnation, and I could now say, well, I don't know if reincarnation is true or not, but I don't do that because what it looks like to me is that there is simply no reason at all, and no supporting evidence, no proof to believe that that reincarnation is
oh,
true.
that's fighting talk for a
For that reason, I know, but for that reason, I will say no. Reincarnation is not true because it is not a question that is unanswered. It is simply a concept that was brought up for no reason, and there is nothing pointing at it. Therefore, I completely deny reincarnation, and I don't think, well, maybe it is
crazy, man. You nutter. You're just out there pissing off whoever you think. No, I'm joking. Do you think
the same way I approach God?
Do you think you're slightly though, like what's the word? Like equating belief with existence. So just because if everybody believes something in error, it doesn't affect its reality one atom of nothing changes. You can have mass delusions, mass hysteria, you can have everybody believing X, Y, Z. Doesn't actually argue for or against the reality of the position, if you see what I mean. So just because you, that's why I picked up on you saying you don't believe there's a good reason, because even if you did believe there's a good reason, doesn't mean it's true either. Do you see the distinction?
Sure,
Like,
but it
yeah.
doesn't concern me. Like, I'm supposed to have a position on whether I believe in God or not, or whether God exists or not. And I take my own stance, and I identify the problem for myself. I don't speak for anyone else. I don't judge anyone else. I don't go around saying people shouldn't believe. On the contrary, I completely understand why people want to believe. I respect people's belief in a
Why do you
supernatural being, in
polemicize
God,
Islam then?
because I think Islam is very unique in that it is very hostile, very destructive, very oppressive, completely contrary to human flourishing, which I think is very central to what humans universally want to achieve. I made personal experiences with Islam that were traumatizing. I still deal with it. I will forever be affected by it, and I want to contribute to preventing Islam from ruining other people's lives and other people's flourishing. And I want to have my own revenge with it too, to be very honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that was one of my other questions that I sort of mentioned before we started recording. So for Christians, I mean, sometimes there's ego involved. Sometimes it's, of all of the debaters I know, YouTube Speakers Corner, just general day to day, I don't think I've yet to meet one who likes being wrong, who likes losing an argument. A friend of mine, gave me quite good advice. He said, there's no point winning an argument and losing the soul of the person you're trying to convince. You're better off to just lose the argument in that instance and leave them with some dignity or whatever it is. But so for Christians, at least, all right, let's do, no, I'm not even going to do that. For me, the reason that I polemicize Islam, that I try to engage atheists only if they're irritating me, to be fair. Like, I don't go out seeking atheists because it's a different ball game. It's quite interesting.
Fight me.
Okay, all right, we'll sort it out. Is it MMA? Do I have to wear a vest? I mean, is this all necessary?
Yeah.
Well, all right, scheduled. Watch this space, people. I'll take him easy. One hand on a Bible behind my back. But so yeah, the motivation for me is, I hope it's obvious. It's out of love and a desire for that person not to perish, which is what the Bible says will happen, if they don't believe. But from even like converts are very zealous generally, even even converting to atheism, as it were, or converting to, like, very zealous, because obviously you think you found the truth and you want to tell everybody about it. But if your motivation is to prevent like Islamic supremacy on a global, just sheer numbers, like, do you have care for the individual? Like, because that would save a lot of Christians, that would save a lot of Muslims from my perspective going to hell, from your perspective, like just wasting time. But do you have an altruistic angle to it, or is it solely vengeful and like, yeah?
I think I believe that I have a certain sense of altruistic, mutually egoistic,
Nice. I like it.
universally utilitarian perspective when I want to change the world and when I want to combat Islam, when I want to be here and want to tell people that Islam is wrong and that they shouldn't be affected by it. I believe what I see is that, I go out there and interact with people. I go to the store and say hello to people, say thank you, smile to people. I hang out with people and I feel happiness. I feel pleasure at the presence of other people. I feel pleasure and happiness when other people smile at me. I like to see people happy. It gives me happiness. Something happens in my nervous system that makes me happy about that. When I see people suffering, it makes me sad. It makes me feel desperate, seeing them desperate. I imagine myself in their situation and it hurts. I mean, people have a sense of empathy. You don't want to see people suffering. You put yourself in their position. I have known many people who were affected by Islam. I myself was affected by Islam in bad ways. I made close contact with people who complained about how their life is ruined because of certain Islamic practices and beliefs. I think my own life could have been much different, much better without Islam. I could have been much happier today without Islam if my family wasn't so religious. So while I do have a certain motive that can be interpreted as justice for myself, that I want to find justice and achieve revenge with this certain thing that intrusively took control of me and gave me a worse life. I also have a sense of making other people's lives better, making the world better, helping other people, knowing maybe this is even a sense of just a desire for virtue, or a desire to be pleased with myself and to be happy with myself, knowing that I have contributed to making the world better. Maybe this is completely selfish, but I want to prevent Islam from causing pain, from causing harm in the world, because I know that it will make me feel better. I know it will make me feel better to see people freed from Islam. It does make me feel happy. When I receive messages from people who say, hey, I have left Islam, thank you so much, I feel so much joy and I want to do more about it. And it just motivates me to keep doing this. I don't want to brag about how I'm such a caring, such an altruistic person. I believe it is purely functional and good.
The thing is, just to pull you down a little notch there, I mean, I'm not even going to go with the arguments about atheism and like virtue and stuff like that. That's a bit redundant. But even I have to check myself quite often, because I also have experience of people apostatizing. They don't always, start a YouTube channel and make their own mugs and T-shirts and stuff. They sometimes just fib about it. Don't tell anyone. They just carry on pretending because they don't want to be chopped from here and here and crucified and crazy stuff like that. But I often check myself, because altruism, I've got to put the caveat, my personal opinion is that we are inherently deviant as a species. Like, the Bible is correct even in as much as that there's no good people, because we often seek the shortest, easiest option, like in the not helping other people. It's nice to feel empathetic, and it's nice to, watch Christmas films and that kind of, I don't know, that nostalgic feel good. The little crippled boy at the end, he gets a new pair of crutches and a big turkey, whatever it is. But good deeds, the payoff is that you get to feel like a nice person, which isn't a terrible thing. And potentially you could look at the former years that have been, inverted commas, ruined in your life, and say that they now push towards an even greater appreciation of the present you've got. So even though technically, yes, you may have been happier at this point, you may also have been an alcoholic who was homeless, who had a string of ex-wives. And so, do you see what I mean? Like, you've got the contrast to say, I was in this complete mind control, or whatever we want to call it at the moment, twaddle, I'm going to go with, and now you're out in the light. You're almost home, as Jay Smith would say, you're almost there, but you're still doing quite well. Like, as in getting people out. But could you not, would you object then to these people who you help out of Islam? Couldn't you just throw them, like direct them towards a Christian evangelist or something like that?
Well, that's the thing. I don't have a certain agenda of directing people toward a certain worldview. What I do have is, if you look at my channel, for example, if you look at my activism under the name Apostate Prophet, I almost exclusively talk about Islam. I sometimes include certain opinions and ideas, of course, that I have about happiness and freedom and rights and this and that, but I don't tell people go and don't believe in God at all, or be an atheist, or do this and that. No, on the contrary, I think people should. I tell people that I think they should seek. I believe we are all seekers, and I wish you happiness and luck on your path of seeking the truth. If you find yourself within Christianity and you are happy with that, I'm fine with that. I'm happy with that. What my problem is Islam. I believe that at the current moment, Islam is an extremely destructive force in the world, extremely bad in the world. I disagree with Christianity in a certain way. I disagree with other religions and different worldviews in a certain way. But if people want to leave Islam and become Christians, for example, I have no problem with it. If the same person wants to leave Islam and become an atheist, that is completely equal to me. I don't prefer a person becoming an atheist over a person becoming a Christian. You know, it's the same to me. I only have a simple message. Aside from that, if people want to ask me about my beliefs,
you only a warner? Is this what you're going to tell me? Are you merely a warner?
I'm a destroyer.
Oh, okay. I just have to checking because I thought that would be ironic.
I'm a destroyer. I'm a critic. I consider myself a critic, a harsh and honest critic, I would say. I just say things that people don't want to say. I'm the guy. I consider myself not even that superior. I'm just doing I just like to do the dirty work. I like to go down there and clean up, do the dirty work, make myself dirty. And that's what I do.
Do you find that there's an element of, I did a couple of videos recently about the cult dynamics of wokeness. That's another issue altogether. But just the deprogramming and the leaving of the cult, and like just any cult, you pick a cult, any cult as it were. But just there's a thing, is it sunk cost analysis? Like you put so much into it, you've been duped for so long, by the time you have your like epiphany, that there's a reticence to leave because you have to admit, oh my gosh, what an idiot. Like I believed a flying donkey and a split moon and so maybe there's, well, not maybe, I know there's definitely something to be said. Obviously, I'd love it if they would just nip over and grab a Bible and check that stuff out, but just sharing your, like being so open about the fact that you were wholeheartedly in and now you're out. But that leads me on to my other observation, in that you were, at one point, I assume in your life, you were 100% certain that Islam was the way, for want of a better phrase. Yeah. And now you're 100% sure that atheism is a viable position for you to put forward whilst destroying Islam. How can you be so 100% anything? Do you see what I mean? Like if I'd done 180.
It is actually quite different. What is true is not that I am now again at a certain position where I'm completely 100% sure about my own position. It is actually very different. I am no longer inside a box. I am no longer part of anything. I no longer have a certain worldview or a certain identity. I am completely open. Before this, I was part of Islam and I was 100% convinced, or supposed to be 100% convinced. I never was 100% convinced that Islam is the truth, and that was my worldview. I held on to that. I had political ideas at other points where I thought, okay, this is absolutely true. But now at this point, especially after I left Islam, I went into a deprogramming that I myself initiated, and I decided that I will never again become part of something and claim that it is 100% true. No, I will be completely free of anything. I will be a free thinker. I will never be completely convinced by everything. I know that I'm just a human. I'm never completely right about something. We are all so easily deceived about our conclusions, about our ideas. So what I will do from now on is that I will simply be myself and never ever cling to something without knowing that it is absolutely true. And
that's a bit of a hold up. I was with you all the way, actually, up until I'll never believe something's 100% true.
No, okay, let me correct that. Yeah. I will never believe in something unless I believe
something you've decided never to believe in, like
unless I know that it's true. That's what I say. Like I like the phrase, was it Carl Sagan? I don't want to believe, I want to know. That tells me how I want to live my life. I don't want to spend any time in assumptions and beliefs and doubts anymore. I simply want to know that a certain thing is true and then follow it, because I feel like I'm done with having
Blindly following.
assumptions. Yeah.
Do you think maybe your religiosity or increased religiosity when you had it was a kickback against the 1% or the 10% that you couldn't quite get yourself to believe? Do you know what I mean? Like you had the niggling doubt, so potentially you became more Muslim, if that's possible, like at least more beardy and like the clothing and the book and the shouting at people in the street, like to cover up that vulnerability, maybe.
Yeah, well, it was a thing. I was politically active outside of Islam before that, and very contrary to Islam, actually. I was in
Aha.
socialist, communist circles. I always believed I always believed that life is about changing the world, or doing something. Life is about ideologies. If I don't live for something, that I'm living for nothing. That's what I thought. So I wanted to be politically active, and then I became religious at some point due to certain events. My aunt was killed, and that kind of moved me toward becoming religious. And I became religious. I tried to believe that this is my meaning of life. I built everything on that, and I already knew that this is what my parents believe, how they are. I kind of already understood the theology and the reasoning behind it. But the issue with me is I I had a lot of questions. People are usually terrified of these questions, especially if you're a Muslim. You are taught to never have doubts, never to question, never to listen to those inner
Literally, Mohammed
thoughts.
said,
Yeah,
don't ask questions.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
that's a red flag if ever I
Yeah,
heard one.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. Obey Allah and His Messenger. Don't ask questions. Don't ask
yeah.
too many questions. You will be a sinner if you ask questions. If Satan comes, then immediately go to Allah and don't think further about it and all that
Allah's
stuff.
going to misguide who he misguides
Yeah,
anyway. So
yeah,
you might
yeah,
as well
yeah,
ask because he's
yeah,
probably guided you into the question. It's all,
yeah. So that
yeah.
was my idea. I thought it was a terrifying experience to go through the questioning, but I thought I have to do this. I have to deal with the doubts and the questions that I have. I can't simply lay them to rest and be like, okay, I just should still hold on to this and believe in this. No, I just let it happen. I thought Allah gave me this mind according to the Quran. He gave me the ability to think, to question. So what could possibly
Not
be so
question
wrong
too
about
much
doing it?
though.
Yeah, don't question
Not
too much.
too
Yeah.
much. A little bit. Yeah.
And
Okay. Well,
yeah, yeah.
I'll get you another time with the Christianity. Oh, don't worry. I've got eternity, but I mean, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
you might
yeah.
need to make some decisions before that.
I will
I guess,
finish you. Yeah.
yeah, potentially. No. It's just never gonna happen. Trust me on the. Oh, literally, I can't shake your hand physically, but well, you can actually shake my hand now because you're not in that club. But we're
Yeah.
getting you there slowly. But don't worry. Don't worry about it. Don't overthink it. Just go with the flow. But wrapping up because yeah, I was supposed to speak to Joe, but I'm not sure that's happening now. I want to end on a non-vengeful destroying is that's not a negative for me. What are your future like? So do you see yourself set? I don't mean it in like a negative sense, but are you now set on this course and you'll just keep polemicizing? Because believe the viewers, there's plenty of material. It's never ending. It's the gift that never stops giving, literally. Will you just carry on in that? Have you got plans to? I don't know.
I took a while recently for I wasn't very active. I didn't publish a lot of videos recently. This was my quietest time the last few months. I had a lot of live events going on, but I have been working on a video, The End of Muhammad Hijab, which will be hopefully published tomorrow. It will be a very long video, like 1 hour, 40 minutes or so. And after that, I want to start again going into criticism. I have a lot of videos planned. I am working on a book that I want to hopefully finish at the end of the year or the beginning of the next year.
Cake baking, hiking, dog walking, or
Yeah.
Islam?
Islam, yeah, yeah.
Shocker. Okay. Brilliant. Have you
And
got a working title or any like
uh,
spoilers?
yeah, I don't want to share the name yet, but one of them will be about why Muslims believe in Islam, why they still believe in Islam, and why it's time to stop. The other will be a comprehensive criticism of Islam through, like, from every aspect. I think it's something that has never been done. I have a very good title for the book, and I really want to go through with that. It could be huge, and
Definitely.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
But aside from that,
consider the circle that you already sort of going academically, and like I've got a few additional people. Even consider after you've done that one, do a collective book on all these different perspectives as to why it's all twaddle. That could be a title, but
yeah,
that seems a bit London, really.
that's a good title, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Why
But
is it all
aside from
twaddle?
that, I'm studying right now. I'm studying psychology, so I'm privately just going further with that. But I'm kind of in the middle of thinking I should switch to studying religious studies. I'm really having this thing right now. I don't know why.
I just finished critical reasoning. I'm now going on to metaphysics. I was supposedly doing theology. I just can't quite get around to
Uh-huh.
I don't know why I keep diverting like for modules, but I know that Jay Smith has got, I think it's the first ever polemicization of Islam university course available. I'll send you the link afterwards to the info.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's the first of its kind. I know there's none in Saudi Arabia, let's put it that way. But it's such a broad theology, can encompass so many, like you can go down so many rabbit holes, as it were, that it's all beneficial because it all somehow, if you're passionate, which I can see you are, about polemicizing something, all of these different psychology, definitely, but even like critical reasoning, and then ontological argument, like all of it can just come into play, because you'll find that obviously, I often when I've spoken to Mohammed Hijab or Ali Dawa or any of them down there, I'm reasonably confident that I'm not going to shake them, as it were. I do get them to say stupid things, but I'm not trying to get them to apostatize. I'm just aware of all the people who are watching at home, and sort of praying that those people will hear something that will do, because it only takes one little tiny bump in the road. If you're supremely confident that 100% of your religion is, true, it only takes a tiny amount of work for the whole edifice to come crumbling. So, yeah.
I have some very good material coming tomorrow about Mohammed Hijab. So,
Has he got a haircut in it yet? Have you got the old footage when he didn't look like Captain Caveman? Like, we free Hanna-Barbera because it's getting too much. But then again, no one can see from a standing vantage point. So
yeah.
The barbers are open for anybody who's watching in Britain. Just you can drop him a line on Twitter or YouTube, or I don't really know what he does because I don't follow him. But yeah, he's got long legs. It would be pointless. He'd get away. But okay, so I'm going to wrap it up on the positive of like just Mickey taking Mohammed Hijab, which is always fun to do. He owes me a debate, by the way, but let's not get technical. Yeah, all right, then I'm going to wrap this up and hopefully speak to you again soon when I've marshaled my best arguments for this potentially one-punch knockout theological debate. Or we can have a reasonable debate and like pretend to listen to each other and take on board the points.
No listening. You're finished. You're finished.
I'm finished. Am I like? Do you want to call me boy or any? I don't
boy,
know how.
Boy. It doesn't work, but yeah.
Excellent. I already feel less theologically sound than I
I would love to have that discussion. It would be nice. Yeah.
Definitely. You can pick it up. We'll pick a topic each, and yeah, because I just slide into like Islamic critique very easily. It's like it's like my sarcasm. It's always there, just waiting. But unfortunately, I mean, it's not good dinner conversation because I do have a lot, well, not as many, but I do have some Muslim friends who still tolerate me. But yeah, I better work on that actually.
It's a fun thing to talk about. Yeah.
It is because, sorry, now I am ranting, but I find that with the professions that like cab drivers and where it's overly representative of Muslim people where I live, they never know. The odd one will be really like outraged, but mostly they're like, oh my gosh, really? Like, and you just show them the verses. Like, it's not a very big book. Like, it's only about this.
Yeah.
It's easy to get through if you've got a strong stomach. Anyway, on
It's hard
that,
to read. That's the problem.
it is.
Yeah.
It was hard for me, only because like it's pretending to be like the book that I love, and then you find out the sequel is a different director, different actors, like a different writer. The words were wrong. Yeah, it's not nice. Okay, so I'm going to stop recording. I'm going to learn how to stop recording. And yeah, is there anything lastly that you want to say to people, like subscribe to Apostate Prophet or?
Yeah, subscribe to this channel and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for having me so much. I really appreciate being here. Would love to come again.
I'm going to be doing
Thank
sit-ups and press-ups, like mental gymnastics, as soon as we get off the camera. Right, I'm going to press stop. And
wait, one more thing. I have to say one more thing. Stay away from Islam.
Definitely. And while you're away from Islam, you might just nip into a library. The Bible's a bestseller. So hashtag just saying. Just have a look. And if you have any questions, I mean, you can come with a sense of entitlement and capital letters into my comment section. Heaven knows there are people there who will accommodate you. Or otherwise, just come and ask. I don't bite. Discord link, etc. You know the drill. And just God bless you and lots of love. And I will see you all soon.